Hello everybody, welcome back to EDI Infinite Digital Academy for Engineering. In today's video we will be solving first order differential equations. Now to solve those type of first order differential equations we need to separate the variables. We need to separate the x variable and the y variable. So we need x variables in one side and y variables in the other side of the equation. And then we can simply take the integration to get rid of this dy dx and solve for y. Now, to solve those type of equations, we first need to get rid of the y to the fifth factor here. And we're doing this by just pulling the y to the fifth to that side or subtracting y to the fifth from both sides. Right? We'll get this equation right over here. We get x to the fifth dy dx equals negative y to the fifth. Now, of course, as I said, we need to separate the x variables and y variables. So we need to put this guy over here and this guy over here. Now to do this we need to pull x to the fifth to that side, and we can do this by dividing x to the fifth from both sides, right? And doing this we'll have x to the fifth dy dx equals negative y to the fifth times 1 over x to the fifth, right? Now we'll get dy dx, x over 5, x to the fifth over x to the fifth cancels, and we're remaining with dy over dx equals negative y to the fifth over x to the fifth. All right, awesome. So we continue, and now we multiply by 1 over y to the fifth to get rid of the y from this side of the equation and pull it to this side so that we can get x's on one side and y's on one side. All right, so we continue and we get this type of equation. Now of course we know dy over dx is the same thing as y prime, right? Dy over dx is the same thing as y prime, so we can just substitute that there, right? So we get 1 over y to the fifth, y prime equals negative 1 over x to the fifth. All right, so cool. As you can see now, we have y's in one side of the equation and the x's in the other side. So what we can do now to get rid of this prime over here, to get rid of this derivative over there, we can just take the integral, right? Because they're opposite. So let's take the integral. Now we take the integral of both sides, right? So it becomes 1 over y to the fifth dy equals integration of negative 1 over x to the fifth dx, right? Now the integration of this guy turns out to be, but before all of this, of course, we need to know that x to the fifth, 1 over x to the fifth is the same thing as x to the negative fifth, right? Now knowing this, it's super simple to solve the integration for this guy, alright? So we can just say the integration of this guy is x negative 5 plus 1, since it's integration, so we add 1 to the power, and of course we divide by the same power, which is negative 4 over here. Of course the constant, which we don't know what it is, alright? We continue and we do the same thing for y. We know 1 over y to the fifth equals y to the negative fifth, alright? And continuing, we also know that we can take the derivative as we did for x, right? Okay, so continuing, we now can substitute the equations into the main equation over here. So we took the integral of this and the integral of this, so we put them in their places, and this turns out to be this equation. Perfect. Now we actually got rid of this y prime over here. We don't have the y prime. So we are super near to the solution, right? What we can only do here is leave y alone, and then we can get our solution, right? So let's do this. Let's actually get rid of this c2 and then get rid of all those numbers, get y alone, and then we'll have our solution, right? And to do this, actually, we'll first need to simplify. So simplifying will give us y to the negative 4 over negative 4 here, x to the negative 4 over 4. Now the reason I wrote 4 here is because negative 5 plus 1 turns out to be negative 4, alright? And this negative over here cancels out the negative 4 over here, so we get plus, right? Now multiplying this negative by c1 also will make it negative c1, but I wrote plus c1. Well, that's okay because we don't know c1 yet. So C1 can be anything, right? C1 can be anything. Now, that's why I wrote C1 again. Okay, so now to simplify this equation and to get y alone, we need to get rid of C2, alright? So to get rid of C2, we need to subtract C2 from both sides, or in other words, we can just take C2 to the other side and add a negative to that, right? So we remove C2 and we get into that side. Well, we predict that C1 minus C2 will be C3, all right? So it's just something, because we don't know what C3 is, right? We don't know what C2 and C1 is, so we just you know, pull those things ahead of our mind, all right? So now, of course, we know y to the negative 4th is the same thing as 1 over y to the 4th, so we simplify the form and simplify this side also, which is x to the negative 4 becomes 1 over x to the 4th, right? So we get this form of the equation. Now we go ahead and multiply this equation by this, right? 4x to the 4th, y to the 4th. Now the reason we are multiplying with this is to get rid of the y over here and to get rid of the x over here. And this turns out to be pretty useful because we leave y's in one side and x in one side alone, okay? So let's continue. We get negative x to the 4th, all right? So when we multiply this here, 4 and 4 cancels out, y to the 4 and y to the 4 cancel out, so we are left with x to the 4th over negative 1, which is the same thing as negative 1 times x to the 4th, right? Now in this side also 4x to the 4th cancels out and we're only left with y to the 4th. Alright, and this side we multiply C3 by this factor, so it becomes 4x to the 4th, y to the 4th. Alright, let's continue and let's try to get y alone in the other side. Alright, so what we will do is we'll factor out the y. Alright, so we factor out y to the 4th from both sides. So that's why we get 1 out and bracket 1 plus C3 4x to the 4th. Now if we multiply this, we're getting this thing back again. Alright, we're super near to the answer. The final thing we have to do is to divide both sides. Divide both sides by, actually we're multiplying both sides by 1 over 1 plus C3 4x to the 4th, right? Perfect. Now multiplying this, we'll get rid of those guys over here, we'll cancel them, alright? So we have y to the 4th alone, and the other side we have negative x to the 4th over 1 plus C3 4x to the 4th, right? So we continue and the final result is like this. Now of course, you can leave your result like this, but this is not the answer, this is not the solution, because we need to find a solution for y, not y to the 4th. Well, it's pretty simple. You just take the Fourier group of both sides, right? So doing this, we'll get this equation over here, right? Now, of course, this is the result. Y equals to the quadratic, I guess we call this quadratic root or quadratic root of negative x to the 4th over 1 plus C3 4x to the 4th, right? Now, this is the answer. Of course, we don't know C3 yet, we don't know it, but if the question gives you some points, for example y equals 1 and x equals 3, you can put them here and you can find C3 for an exact solution, right? Alright, that's it guys, thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment and share this video to help others.